This is ultimately why I be telling artists, like, yeah, there's a lot of artists out there, but you're not competing with a lot of them. Like, you're not competing with most of them. I don't even think you're competing with 90% of them.
Every angry producer in my comments, I swear, if I just, and I've done this before, just randomly click to see, they haven't uploaded beats in years. What's going down? It is At Odds. We're back in this. I probably shouldn't cuss in the intro. YouTube's algorithm has been behaving strangely, at least for me. And I don't know if part of that is profanity in the intro. I tend not to use profanity in the intro. My last video about AI, though, I cussed a lot. How are the two of you feeling?
Yeah, this week's going well. Getting a lot done. The lesbian homie is still doing well. That the YouTube algorithm for that is working well. So we're excited. Just kind of figure out what the next step is and how we're going to use this momentum and build on it. But yeah, most things are going well these days. Aaron?
Yep, I'm in Atlanta, so I'm in my city. I'm doing well. I'm learning new productivity tips, learning how to hack myself better. So I'm doing good. It's been a journey, but I'm doing good. I feel like I'm starting to get stuff in order and figure out what my new flow is going to be with a lot of things on my plate.
I feel like I've been having that conversation with a lot of people, especially artists. And so if part of that equation involves distribution, go to tolost.com, use the code ATODS for 3 months of free premium distribution. And then Dane brought up too, this is for anyone, but especially for producers, you have now a new feature with Lost where you can upload I'm a producer. This is how I look at things. Upload your beats and then automatically scan the content ID system to see who may be using your beats without having purchased a license, right?
So yeah, so it's for any music, but it's not content ID, right? So it can scan the entire.
Oh, even better.
It can scan the entire internet, and it's an added feature that you'd have to pay for. I think it's $1 a track per month, but if you have a track that's performing better, obviously it makes sense to possibly run it on the more popular tracks that you have. But yeah, and it's not a new feature. I brought it up last week because we have a lot of features that we just haven't done a good job at educating our community exists. And we constantly have new features rolling out. So we just have to get better about letting people know that they're available, and probably tailoring that message to the segment of artists that are going to use it most likely, right? Because there's a lot of artists that are more in the beginning stages that can take advantage of some of the tools. That might want to take advantage of the cover art generator or something like that. And then the more advanced artists want to use maybe the usage discovery tool or the copyright registration and things like that. So we just got to do better at educating folks on what exactly is sitting in Lost that you have available to you. But yes, you can do that with your beats if you're a producer. I'm going to go ahead and kick this off. We have kind of just something that came across our Instagram timeline yesterday. It's about Finesse 2 times. He says, it's pulled up. Nice. Finesse performs one song in Jackson after he wasn't paid his backend, allegedly due to low ticket sales. Finesse was allegedly paid $15,000 and was owed another $15,000 for the back end, but he never received it. People close to the promoter say he is wealthy and has enough money to pay the back end, but refuses to pay Finesse and take an L on the event. Tickets were $50 general and $100 VIP. Aaron,
well, it sounds like he took an L on the event regardless.
Yeah, but Aaron, you used to own a booking agency. Can we just knock this out real quick and let them know why just the first sentence that's in the graphic that says Finesse performs one song in Jackson after he wasn't paid his back end, allegedly due to low ticket sales. Can you just explain why that, something doesn't make sense?
It kind of does. Maybe I'm misunderstanding it, but I feel like it kind of does correlate. They're just ignorant. So if you have a guarantee, your guarantee is your guarantee. You get the deposit, and then when you arrive, or sometimes when you perform, you get your balance. So depending on how big the artist is, sometimes us just getting on the premises, landing, means that you give us the balance, and sometimes we get to the venue, you give us the balance, and then some people are like, after you perform, you get the balance. Back end typically is a term referring to royalties, and let me not put it in quotes, royalties. So there are no royalties involved. However, if you did a rev share deal, there is a back end, which is, hey, we're going to give you a guarantee of $5,000, and then you'll get 30% of the ticket profit, or 50% of the ticket profit, or 70% after $1. There's different terms. So that would be considered back end. And if that's the case, that means that it's tied to the ticket sales. But I think back end is not a good word to use when talking about booking, which is why it's very questionable.
So from my experience, back end is hit only if the ticket threshold is hit, right? So if there's 1,000 cap venue, if you sell it out, and then you're probably going to hit back end. But normally, like say if you hit 700, and this is all in the contract, but like if you sell 700 out of the 1,000 or 800, and there might be a tier system where you won't hit back end if you don't hit that ticket threshold. That to me is why the statement that's in the graphic doesn't even make sense, because it would make sense that he wasn't paid a back end if the ticket sales were low, right? But then there's a bunch of people jumping in the comments that don't understand these terms. So this to me is just another example of people not understanding the business on social media, and a lot of people chiming in. So just to make it clear.
I want to know what actually happened. Is it back end, or is it the second half of his guarantee?
If it were back end, it wouldn't be just a flat number, right? It wouldn't be he was given 15,000 up front and then was guaranteed 15 on the back end. Because one, a back end is not a guarantee, and two,
could
generally,
be a guarantee if he hits certain markers, though.
Yeah, I think that would be a terrible contract for both parties, though. And I imagine Finesse 2 times management isn't that careless.
It sounds like, just because what we have in the information that we have available, it says Finesse was allegedly paid $15,000 and was owed another $15,000. Like, a lot of times the deposit is 50%. I mean, sometimes it's a little lower if it's a reputable promoter or big event. But to me, this sounds like it was just the other half of his guarantee, so not the back end.
That makes the most sense. I think that's the only thing that makes sense. And then I know, and I want to talk about this topic related to something entirely different later on, but a lot of people were saying, well, he should have performed more music than just one song for the fans. And I wonder about that, because where do you draw the line between, not adhering to, setting professional boundaries and doing good business, and then also, had he performed a full set, granted, yes, it would have been good for the fans, but it also would have completely, been a matter of you playing right into the hands of a promoter that allegedly violated your agreement.
Yeah, I think that's where artists need to make a decision. If a promoter is doing bad business and you're not getting paid, the fans, unless the fans know the entire story, and, it's probably going to come back on you. They're going to be like, why, how come you didn't perform? I paid to see you. So, you got to make a decision, or maybe you can smooth it over some other kind of way, give some people discounts on the merch, or promise to come back, or do something to make sure that your fans still have a good experience or a good perception of you. But that's,
you could tell they were confused in the video. She was like, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? So, because he was like, blame it on the promoter. People don't know what promoters are. And then if you're already on stage, somebody's going to be like, blame what on the promoter? You're getting off stage. But I've seen it time and time again. I remember seeing Don Tolliver at Soho House in Austin. He pulled up. I'm looking at this man, like looking at him behind the DJ booth. He stood behind the DJ for 10 minutes and then he left. And I was so upset. So then I asked what happened, because I knew one of the booking guys there, and he was like, yeah, I mean, we had told him this, and I think my boss got confused, and guarantee was not paid properly. So he showed up because the deposit was paid, but the agreed upon number was not paid. He left.
Yeah.
I was somewhere else recently where very similar, or Lil Wayne in Nashville for the Blavity Fest. I don't know if it was the guarantee issue, but he has a certain standard of his show, and it wasn't sold out to the capacity, or sold by any means to the capacity that they said. And Lil Wayne suddenly was not there, and his performance was canceled, but he was there. Like, all of my friends who were working backstage were like, yeah, no, his whole team and him is here. And then he just flew home. So I think people don't understand, a lot of artists get in sucky situations with promoters, and just as a good habit, unfortunately, you have to put your foot down or they begin to take advantage of the situation. I think it's
Really
one song. And then I know an artist that I work with is touring with, and the promoter did something funny very last minute with his merchandise, and basically was trying to take like 35% of the merch. So they did a merch pop-up the full day. It was on a Saturday. They found a space. They did a merch pop-up the full day and didn't sell any merch. So the promoter lost out on a ton of money because it was an arena tour. They lost out on a ton of money that they could have made had they given them an amicable split. But instead, now this artist quadrupled the amount of merch he sold because he opened up a shop for 8 hours. So I think you got to be intentional and thoughtful about the way that you do your business. When you're a newer artist, I think there's a little less wiggle room, but the bigger you are and the more stature you have, I respect what he did. He gave the fans one song and then he said, I'm out of here.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest. I feel like the promoters know what they're doing because they put you on the stage and they're like, even if you don't show up, people are going to be mad at you because they don't know what the business is behind the scenes. One, to conclude, I think Backend, they're just using it because Finesse 2 Times is known for a song called Backend, which is funny but also shitty because then people get confused. But two, I think artists have to put their foot. It happened to me. It happened to me in I-20, and people don't understand the business that goes behind this. We, with a guarantee like that, oftentimes it's all in. So we already paid for all the travel to get there. We didn't make shit off the first half because a lot of that went into travel, hotel, whatever. And we were so upset that they didn't have the second half, which was guaranteed in the agreement before we hit the stage, that we just stayed outside in the car. And then when it was clear from our manager that the promoters were bullshitting, we left. And it was upsetting for us, and fans are upset. Everyone's upset by it, but very rarely does it come back to the promoter because that would require a deeper understanding of how booking works. And why would the average fan know that? That's not their responsibility. So bad situation. And unfortunately, in this case, the artist is the one getting a lot of the heat, and I don't think he deserves it based on what we think happened.
I mean, I think it also just goes to show that, none of this stuff is rocket science, but there is a deeper understanding required to tour, and just to make sure you get what you owe. You want to have some people that communicate well on the road. Sometimes it's just a matter of communication because egos get involved. You want to make sure you have a tour manager that understands the deal of that night so that they can properly do check the calculation as well once the promoter is going through like back end calculations and all these deductions that might not need to be in there. So there's more to this than simple 1 + 1 is 2. That's why you need to have a real solid, experienced team.
Well, speaking of bad situations, we went from a situation where an artist was done wrong, now moving on to a situation where artists are doing wrong. And this is a hell of a topic. I forget who picked this one. Aaron, Dame, I don't know who wants to intro this.
Not you saying they're doing wrong. That's such a funny lead-in.
Go ahead.
They're doing wrong by whatever Z's describing.
Go ahead and cue this up, Aaron.
Okay, so Z, the creator of Audio Mac, He tweets so many fascinating things, so I think you guys should follow him. It's at Brian Z Sook. I think that's how you say his name. He tweeted a couple days ago, I randomly picked 4 artists who released albums the week of June 7th to see how often they promoted their music on social media. On average, they shared the content 2.5 times per week across IG, Twitter, I'm not calling it that, and TikTok. Alarmingly, across 40 posts, none engaged a single follower who left a comment.
To me, this is ultimately why I be telling artists, like, yeah, there's a lot of artists out there, but you're not competing with a lot of them. Like, you're not competing with most of them. I don't even think you're competing with 90% of them. Like, there's a very small fraction of artists that are doing what you need to do to give yourself a real chance at music. And this is the evidence. Of course, this is a small sample size relative to the amount of artists out there globally. But I think if you ran this experiment on a larger scale, you'd probably find the same thing, if not worse.
And we should, honestly, because I'll tell you this, in my experience, the artists that do the least are the ones bitching. Remember when we covered, Russ was posting, basically giving advice to people, and people were posting terrible music, and he was giving them feedback, and they were arguing with him. And, you know, basically saying, I should be as famous as you are, Russ. I'm just as good, if not better, and I put in the same amount of work. And they'd have one song, and it was trash.
Or he commented on multiple people who didn't have their song in their bio. Some of them it was impossible to find on their profile. He's like, okay, I scrolled down 8 days, and you've only posted about your music one time in 8 days.
Yeah, and that with producers, man, I get so many bitch-ass producers telling me I'm trash, telling me that the beat game is dead, telling me they can't sell beats. Every angry producer in my comments, I swear, if I just, and I've done this before, just randomly click to see, they haven't uploaded beats in years. They upload one beat every 6 months on a haphazard schedule. The quality is terrible. The thumbnails are terrible. There's always an issue. And they're angry about it. And they're the ones to blame. It's not anyone else. It's not because the game is messed up. And I would love replicate this. The next time I do this on Twitter all the time. It's always a rapper who's mad at me for saying something that has 3 monthly listeners. And then when I point it out, it's like, I'm not here to insult you. I'm here to say there's a difference in credibility here, right? One of us has experienced this and done it consistently and generated 6 figures off the business, being in the business consistently for year after year after year after year. You're not even making $1 a month off of this particular streaming platform. However, you feel as though your opinion is the most authoritative in this debate, and it's not. And it's not because I love being right. It's because, look, you're so adamant. This conversation doesn't affect me. Whatever you do, I don't give a fuck. I'm going to sleep just fine. This is about you. If you're not taking advice, I'm not even talking about myself. I'm talking about anyone that's a professional when you're not. If you're not taking advice and modeling yourself after their real experiences, observable experiences that you can see, case studies, things like that, then you're just hurting yourself. A lot of people love to go off of their opinions. Opinions based on what? You haven't done anything.
So what is so there's not going to be a specific number that like, hey, you need to post 20 times after every song. But the number is definitely not 2 or 3. It has to be a lot more than that. And you're really not giving yourself a shot because on these platforms, sometimes you need to post, like say you make a video, it doesn't really do that well. Well, maybe you needed to have a different intro on that video. Maybe you needed to start that video at a different point. Maybe you needed to post it at a different time. Maybe you needed to change some of the graphics. You got to change some of these small things and sometimes can have huge effects on the performance of that particular video. So you got to keep trying things. And it's not about making the same post. You got to this is where the creativity comes in. Like, how can you post this in a different way, a unique way? Can you take a piece of the lyric and do something with just that? You know, is there a sketch you can put to this? Is there other things that because you're trying to tell your story as an artist. Is there other ways that this song fits into how you're telling your overall story, your brand, and your messaging? So 2.5 times is wow. I remember interviewing a cat named Abel Hart on the Independent Living podcast. He had a song, I think it was called Whisper, because he's like whispering in the song. And I went back and saw like how many TikTok videos he posted, because he posted a shitload to the point where people were annoyed by it, but it was working. Like it was working. So he probably made literally about 40 videos with that same song posted on TikTok. So some songs you're going to post more because once you post and give it a real chance, you're seeing some real traction. So you're doubling and tripling down. Some songs aren't going to resonate with people no matter what you do, but 2.5 times is not giving it a real chance and seeing if it does resonate with people.
To put it succinctly, you have to try a lot of things many times. That's it. That's marketing.
Yeah. And I think too, the thought process around it is you don't actually hate posting. You hate the results that you get when you post. If every video was going 100,000 views, you would be outside shooting on your iPhone, doing the whole.
I don't know.
You think if it would get a lot of views?
It's definitely more likely. There are some weirdos.
It's more likely.
There are some weirdos that would stop, like for sure.
I personally think people find success more intimidating than failure in the music business.
I mean, okay. I think in a broader sense, yes. But I think if you post a video and you think the song is amazing and that video blows, more than likely, I would think you would double down and try it again, because at first it strokes your ego. Then the other bigger things come. But I feel like at first, so when people say they hate to post, all I'm hearing is, I don't like the results that I'm getting. If you don't like the results that you're getting, now it's time to try new things, like y'all said. And the interesting thing was people were like, well, 2.5 times a week isn't that bad. How many times am I supposed to post? And Z was like, no, 2.5 times across all of those platforms, not 2 times on Instagram, 3 times on TikTok, 1 time on YouTube. He's saying they might have had 1 YouTube video. They might have reposted it twice on TikTok, or posted the same thing on Instagram and TikTok, and then they might have tweeted. And so he was getting his average just from touching, and then them not responding. I'm seeing this more and more, and it drives me up a wall. Because if I comment on your video, I really rock with what you're doing, or you're one of my homies. And I usually try to be intentional about the type of comments that I leave, or I'll just do emojis. If I'm just like, oh, this shit is tight and I can't think of anything else, I'll just leave some emojis. But if it compels me, I usually leave nice things. When people don't respond or they just like it, and I'm like, bitch, you have 20,000 followers. Like, say something. Because I have people, one of my favorite creators just DM'd me yesterday, and I'm not usually geeking about people, but she's got like 500,000 followers, but she has a new project that she just started. Her DMing me because of the words that I said when I reposted, she was like really moved. It wasn't a long sentence, but I was like excited because she took the time, and she has a new project launching. So I think she had like over 10,000 times that this video was shared, and like thousands of comments, 100,000 likes. And that was just yesterday. It's probably more since then. So I think if she could comment, y'all could get over yourself. Just say, man, appreciate you, or that's dope, or for real, or whatever. Do you know what I'm saying?
No, real shit. Like artists who are at that stage where they don't have an overwhelming amount of fans or other obligations are in a sense of privileged position over these big time celebrities who are so disconnected from their fan bases simply because logistically they just can't connect. If you have 10 fans and only 5 people leave you comments, reply to those 5, because those 5 people start evangelizing you as not just a musician, but as a person. That's the thing people love. I've seen, especially when I'm touring the DIY circuit, or when I used to go to shows on the very DIY side of the indie touring circuit, but like the reason all these underground rappers in like the very early 2000s are able to still eat now is because they were doing so much intense fan outreach at that point. Like you hear people talking these, I don't know. people have to have more conversations with fans and ask them and like absorb what they love about the experience and what they love about their artist. It's such a fascinating look into the mind of a music fan when you just ask them about what they liked about a performance or a meet and greet or something. He was so nice. He shook everyone's hand. It's something that simple. Or, oh my God, I can't believe I got my reply on such and such's Instagram liked by the artist. The smallest things people will remember. They really will.
Like both sides of this are equally as flagrant to me. Like you not posting enough about the song that you just put out, and then you not engaging with the fans that do appreciate the content. Both sides are flagrant. And I understand that a lot of artists, are hesitant to really go all in because then they always have an excuse. Well, I really wasn't trying that hard, or, Instagram doesn't fuck with me, or, they always have an excuse. And that's why they don't really put themselves out there, because they want another reason why it didn't work out. So if that's you, you really need to get over it if you really think that you can, have a real shot at this. But yeah, it's you're not competing with all these artists out here, 5%, maybe less than that are really kind of locked in, giving themselves a real shot. So, don't get discouraged by the amount of music that comes out every week, because people aren't promoting it anyway.
And those excuses are bullshit. I have 150,000 YouTube subscribers. And if I were to sit around and bitch that I only got 5,000 views on my last, producer video, which I could. I think at this point I have, the experience and the output where I should be getting more views. But it's my fault at the end of the day. It's my responsibility. I can't blame anyone for that. If I'm splitting my channel among audiences, if I'm not adhering to best practices, people ask me about that all the time. I'm like, look, I'm trying to experiment with other channels. I get it. So I messed up. Don't be like me.
Who are some examples that we can point people to that do it well? Like in terms of put out a good amount of content before the release, teasing it, dropping it after the release. Who are some artists that you guys have seen done this really well?
Piff Marty, we brought him up a couple weeks ago.
I was going to say Piff. There's this chick named Childlike Cece. I think she does a really good job of always teasing songs and then following with content. I would love to see more diversity in the type of content she posts, because it's mostly performance videos, either when she's in front of a crowd or she's performing, on a street or in her room, which I think is cool. But I just want to see a more inside look at her. But she does not hesitate she will tease a song 6 months in advance. And then when it finally drops, and she'll tease it, and I don't know. And when it finally drops, she'll every day, sometimes twice a day, is posting a video for at least a week or two. And then it's like, tease another song, go back to promoting the song that just dropped, tease another song. So she's just constantly showing people like, I got music. If you want to listen to me, there's plenty of it here.
Yeah. And then, even 6 months down the road, like songs you put out, a while ago, you could still be creating content. So some artists that come off the top for me, I think Snow the Product does a really good job. There's a young lady named Kennedy Ryan that I just came across that does really well. There's a lot of good examples, and I would follow artists not just because you like their music, but because you feel like they're doing things the right way, and you can model, your strategies off theirs. I mean, some things you can copy and some things you just need to mold and figure out how it makes sense for your brand. But, if I was an artist, I would be following a lot of artists that I think, just have their shit together.
Yeah. And I think too, if you don't want to post regularly, there's space for you. I don't post very regularly, and my page grows month over month, but you have to be outside and talking to people. And if you're outside every day talking to people and meeting people, when they like you, they'll go back and look at your page. And if the content reflects who you said you were and who you presented as, then they'll respond to that. So you still got to post. And I'm not saying to run away from it, because I'm in the process. I've been shooting a ton over the last month. I have to lean into it because I see where the shift is going in content right now. And so I'm like, oh, perfect. It's time for me. So I'm excited because it's leaning in a way that I enjoy, but I'm also still managing multiple social accounts. So I know what works. I know how commenting, all those things work. So as a purveyor of content, I'm a little bit slower, but as a consumer and as a curator, I'm aware of what the trends are. And so I think when people have one page and they're just like, I just wish, whatever you wish can happen, go do it, and if you want it on your terms, figure it out. It'll take longer on your terms, but it'll be how you want it. So if you want to figure out if you want to figure out what makes the most sense for you and you don't want to post, or you don't want to post that often, figure out how to find the audience that aligns with that.